I want to try using this Brownie Hawkeye camera with regular 35mm film, but in order to get a proper exposure you need to know a few things, like the f number and the shutter speed. I couldn't find any really accurate information on this, so I decided to measure them myself. The first thing I had to measure was the shutter speed. I had read it could be anywhere between 1/30th and 1/60th of a second, so I set it up in front of my high-speed camera so I could count the frames and determine exactly how long the exposure was. At 1200 frames per second, the exposure only lasted 33 frames. This works out to approximately 1/40th of a second, which is right in between the two numbers I had found online. To calculate the f number, I need to know both the diameter of the aperture as well as the focal length of the lens. The aperture was approximately 5mm and the focal length of the lens was approximately 81mm. This gives me an approximate f number of 16. When loading 35mm film into one of these cameras, the first thing you have to do is block the little window at the back. Here I'm using two pieces of foil tape because they're completely opaque to light. The first time I tried this, I only used a single layer of black electrical tape, and light leaked through the window, spoiling the photos. The easiest way to determine how far you need to advance the film between each picture is to cut up a little piece of plastic and tape it onto the canister. Make sure that there's a little tooth that falls into the sprocket holes, so as the film is spooled out of the canister, you'll hear that little tooth as it clicks between each sprocket hole. By counting the holes, you'll know that your pictures don't overlap and you're not wasting any film. To attach the film to the empty spool inside the camera, I just slipped the film through the slot on the spool and taped it with a piece of electrical tape. You'll notice that the slot on the spool is almost exactly the same side as the film, so as long as you keep the film pushed up against the side of the slot, it's not going to wander too far in either direction as you're winding it up. The shape of this camera conveniently holds the 35mm film canister without letting it move from side to side. I've seen some people use wooden posts to keep it centered, but I didn't find them to be necessary. I've drawn a little mark so that you can see it takes about 13 clicks in order to take that mark all the way down and off the frame. This means that your pictures won't overlap, but you're not wasting a lot of unexposed film in between pictures. Removing film from this camera has to be done in a completely dark room because it's not spooling into another canister and there's no way to rewind it while it's inside the camera. The first thing you have to do is take that little plastic tooth off, otherwise you're not going to be able to wind the film backwards into the canister. Once you have the canister and the spool removed, you can use a screwdriver to wind the film back into the canister so that the film can be stored until it's time to develop. When you get to the end of the spool, just peel off the tape or cut the little leader off at the end of the film. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and good luck with your own photography.